Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Redistricting Public Forum for Steeplechase Elementary School. Thank you for being here tonight on this rainy evening. If you would, please rise with me. We're going to turn to face the flag of the United States of America and begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you for being here. This is a public forum, and I'll work through the guidelines here of how it will run. Essentially the same as our first forum. I see a few familiar faces here from the other forum. This is not going to be necessarily a debate of the proposals this evening. This is a listening session for us as a school district to make sure we're hearing the concerns, the viewpoints, the opinions of the community in making a very important decision. This committee will be recorded for this meeting will be recorded for the committee's review. We ask that anyone speaking to the group, please come to the microphone here to my left and talk directly into the microphone. We will use a sign-up sheet for the order of call for individuals that wish to speak this evening. We will have a 2-minute time limit on individuals that wish to speak. Individuals that are representing a larger number, so we can be more efficient this evening in just having the number of people speak. Those people representing a larger number would be allowed 5 minutes to speak if you're representing a group. Let me take just a moment to introduce a few of the people here in our meeting room tonight. We have 3 of our board members that are here. Over here to my left is Karen Bird, also Julie Pyle, and over here to my right is Matt McIntyre. So we appreciate our board members being here and listening in tonight. Also, I'm going to introduce here in just a few moments Mike Ford, our Director of Pupil Personnel. He'll give a presentation of the different recommendations for redistricting. So I would just ask that everyone please make sure we listen, make sure we consider other perspectives, other opinions. What we want to do is hear those and understand things that we may not have considered or that we may not have thought of in this process. Again, the comments and the information that we share tonight from this forum will be analyzed by the Redistricting Committee prior to their making a final recommendation to the Board of Education. And it's the Board of Education that will make the final decision on redistricting. So let me introduce Mr. Ford over here to my left for him to begin his presentation.
Hang on one second. Let me start it. Hang on one sec. I gotta share. Oops. There's the Zoom. There you go. Yep.
Good evening, Mr. Turner. Yes, board members. I want to echo Mr. Turner's sentiments and welcome you here to this public forum hearing in regards to the project for creating the school district for our newest elementary school, Steeplechase Elementary School. When the Board of Education, excuse me, glasses are on. When the Board of Education adopts a project for the construction of a new school within the school district, obviously the school district for that new school has to be carved out of the current school district. When that charge is handed down to the standing ad hoc committee called the Demographics and Growth Committee, that project is handed down, that charge for that project is handed down with certain vectors that are identified to the committee with the idea that they do the best that they can to meet all or as many of the vectors as possible. Those vectors include answering the question, as we complete the project, what is educationally best for all the students involved? As we complete the project, the committee attempts to maintain existing neighborhoods by using established community boundaries. The committee attempts to decrease overcrowdings in schools to allow for future growth and increased population in declining schools and to allow successful educational programs to be utilized within the schools. The committee works to attempt to provide more consistent feeder patterns to middle school and high school as the children continue to grow up. And we also look at ideas in regards to transporting students, trying to provide clean boundaries with no crossing patterns, and attempt to take into consideration time and distance traveled on the bus. Finally, we also look at trying to balance and measure socioeconomic makeup of the schools to the best of the committee's ability. Specifically for this project, the committee has been charged by the Board of Education to move students to the creation of a new school district from current elementary school districts. That charge includes moving students from New Haven Elementary School to Steeplechase Elementary School, and moving students from Collins Elementary School to Steeplechase Elementary School. There's a very extensive process that goes through a redistricting project. There's a very lengthy timeline in regards to the process. There's a committee that is organized called the Demographics and Growth Committee that I've already mentioned, and that committee works in conjunction with the Boone County Planning Commission to develop a plan with the charge in mind as provided by the Board of Education. And specifically, that agency within the Boone County Planning Commission is called the GIS Office. It's a computerized database that allows the school district to look at multiple scenarios based on the goals and vectors in a matter of minutes. I mentioned that there's a timeline. The timeline for this project actually begins a year before we get to this point in time here. Behind the scenes, I guess you could say, there are several options and scenarios that are reviewed by district office staff in conjunction with the Planning and Zoning Commission. 6 months prior to this point in time, that same group begins to reduce scenarios based on logistics and information both from the school district and from the county. 4 months out, we try to narrow, as we get ready to organize and introduce the initiation of the full committee, we try to narrow down the work to 3 possible scenarios to give the committee a starting point for discussion. 3 months out, the redistricting committee is initiated, and I'll go through the makeup of that committee in just a few moments. 2 months out, which is where we're at right now, we get to the process of holding public forums to allow the public to see the plans that have been created to that point in time by the committee and provide input, just like Mr. Turner said, in this type of forum with the committee and board members present to hear those ideas and take note of them and go back for discussion to the committee in regards to the commentary that's made in the public forums. 1 month out, after full review of the commentary from the public forums and all work that's been taking place for over a year, the committee looks to make a recommendation to both the superintendent and the Board of Education, and there has to be a formal board meeting for the adoption of a school district. Under Kentucky State statute, only the board, the elected Board of Education, can adopt a school district geographically within the confines of the entire school district. So that's the timeline. I mentioned the Demographic and Growth Committee. It's made up of principals and parent representation from affected schools in relation to the charge. There's a district level administrative team and board members that are on the committee, and staff from the GIS office of the Boone County Planning and Zoning Commission. The Demographic and Growth Committee for this project, district office representation is Mr. Turner, superintendent, Mr. McCarter, deputy superintendent, Mr. Ford, the assistant superintendent, myself, Mr. Barracks, the director of transportation for the school district, Mr. Raleigh, the assistant director of people personnel out of my office, and Mr. Brock, also another assistant director of people personnel out of my office. Our board members who are represented on this committee are Ms. Bird and Mr. McIntyre. School representation includes the following principals: Ms. Goebel from New Haven Elementary School, Mr. Lauren from Collins Elementary School, Ms. Krieger from Shirley Mann Elementary School, and Ms. Best from Ackerman Elementary School, along with these parent representatives: Ms. Thornton from New Haven, Ms. Penrose from Collins Elementary School, and Ms. Northcutt from Shirley Mann Elementary School. From the Boone County Planning and Zoning Commission, Mr. Costello, who is the executive director of the Boone County Planning and Zoning Commission, and a very good friend of mine, Mr. Gay, who is the director of the GIS services for the Boone County Planning and Zoning Commission. So that's the committee makeup. We've held several committee meetings already. Our first committee meeting took place on June 23rd of this year. Full committee. We went through the guidelines of meetings established and considerations for redistricting. We identified succinctly the charge of the Board of Education for the committee. We looked at the 3 scenarios that were brought to the committee to begin discussion. The task of the committee was identified to review these scenarios, looking for pros and cons within each. Our second and third meetings occurred on August the 3rd, 2020, and August 17th, 2020. In these meetings, we continued to review the pros and cons of each scenario. We began to tweak the current scenarios based on information from all members of the committee. And we narrowed down the adoption of a plan to move forward to the board hearing, where we ended up with 2 scenarios that we presented to the Board of Education at the board workshop. The board workshop took place on September 3rd, 2020. At that board workshop, the board got the same presentation that you are getting. The organization of the committee was identified to the board. The current situation of our school district was identified to the board, along with the identification of the project, of the construction of the school, and the need to draft a school district for our new school. We identified and presented the 2 scenarios from the committee that the committee had adopted by consensus at that time. And we listened to feedback from the board members. And then we took the feedback from the board with any ideas that they had back to a next meeting in preparation for the public forums. That committee meeting occurred on September 28, 2020. We reviewed the commentary from the board workshop. We reviewed public comments that had been already received via phone call and email with the committee. And we completed preparations for holding the public hearings. And of course, here we are now, the public forums. The public forums are advertised, and I want to tell Ms. Evans, I appreciate this information. Ms. Evans is the secretary, administrative assistant, excuse me, to both the board and the superintendent. The public, by law, the public forum public forum meetings were advertised on the district website and on school websites. It was also advertised twice in the Community Recorder, which is the largest circulation within the county. It was also advertised in September on Facebook, and it was also advertised on the school district calendar, which is accessible through the district's webpage. Along with that, letters were sent out to the best of our ability. We sent out over 600 letters trying to reach families within the areas that could be impacted and announce to them that the public forums were going to be taking place, the day they were going to be taking place. Obviously, if a person does not have a child yet in the school district, they don't have a kindergartner yet or anything, then maybe they didn't receive a letter because we grabbed out of our database students who were identified in the campus, and we have had some of those letters returned simply because people have moved south. But we did our best to try to get letters out to as many people as possible, along with meeting the legal guidelines for the announcement of the public forum. In this public forum, the present current situation is identified that we are building a new elementary school in the community of Steeplechase, and therefore we have to carve out of our current school district a school district specifically for Steeplechase Elementary School. I'm going to review with you a couple of the scenarios in a minute that show the work of the committee. We will invite comments and feedback. Many of you have already signed up, and you'll be speaking here in just a few moments. Your comments and feedback will be documented by Ms. Evans, and they will be provided in a hard copy form to the committee for review, as well as emails and phone call notes that we've been taking from people who have communicated with the Board of Education office in that way, and our board members in that way. From these public forums, the committee will be setting dates and times to meet further in November, and we'll review the public comments and feedback. We'll continue to review the scenarios, and we'll be working towards a consensus on final recommendation that will be given from the committee to the superintendent and the Board of Education. And within that recommendation, the committee will do the best it can to balance enrollment, provide clear boundaries, and identify where there is growth potential. The two scenarios that we want to introduce within these public forums are scenario number one, first of all. Larger maps are back here on the wall, which you're more welcome to look at after the public forum. Get up and move around and see them. The map to the left is the current school districts, elementary school districts of Boone County. And scenario one and scenario two are presented in larger versions where you can see streets, identify communities by the use of the streets, and see a larger scale model of what's on screen. Because I know that's difficult to see. I recognize that. So that's why we also provide that vision as well. So scenario number one. Under scenario number one, the following communities, major subdivisions, would be redistricted to Steeplechase Elementary School. First of all, from Collins Elementary School, the communities of Richwood North Estates, White Pine Village, and Wisteria Village would be shifted from Collins Elementary School to Steeplechase. And from New Haven Elementary School, the communities of Deer Trace, Steeplechase, and Sutherland. We're looking at building Steeplechase with a present capacity of 650. Under this scenario, they would open approximately 621 students. Collins would shift from 827 with a capacity of only 672 down to 508. And New Haven with a capacity of 900 and an enrollment of 901 would shift down to 599 students. The socioeconomic impact, you see there, that is the percentage of students, per definition, because I was asked to define that by one member of the community. Socioeconomic status is the percentage of children within a school who qualify for free or reduced lunch charges. Steeplechase would open at 74%, Collins would be at 89% under this scenario. New Haven would be at 27%, and you see what their current numbers have been ranging at. Scenario number 2, you can identify the shape of the blue a little different. Under scenario number 2, the communities or major subdivisions that would be impacted from Collins Elementary School would be Old Lexington Villas and Richwood North Estates. From New Haven Elementary School would be Deer Trace, Steeplechase, Sutherland, and Jockey Club. The impact on the numbers, 521 for Steeplechase as a approximate opening. Approximate adjustment for Collins would be down to 682 students. And an approximate adjustment for New Haven Elementary School would be down to 525 students. The socioeconomic impact, Steeplechase at 60%, Collins Elementary School at 91%, and New Haven Elementary School down to 27%. So that's the numerical student population impact on the schools from these two scenarios and the socioeconomic impact on the two schools from those scenarios. And Mr. Turner, with that, sir, that is the presentation of the Demographics and Growth Committee, outlining the committee itself, the work of the committee, and the two scenarios that we are focused on at this point in time in preparation to move forward with our work. Sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ford, and thank you to all the people that have served on the redistricting committee and the work that you've done over the summer and through these fall months. We appreciate your time and your efforts. At this point in time, Mr. Ford's going to join me up here on the days, and we're going to begin calling out names of visitors here that have wished to speak. Again, we ask you to identify yourself, speak directly into the microphone, so that we may have your opinion and your viewpoint for the record. Also, please understand this is just a listening session for us. We want to make sure that we understand the issues at hand. So without anything further, we'll start going through that list. I'll have Mr. Ford give probably the first 5 names or so you don't have to queue up, but just be ready to step up to the microphone right after the person right in front of you is finished.
Okay, just one moment. Set my timer, please, sir. And I'll be right at that. Very good. The first speaker will be Miss Stacy. First of all, let me say this too. If I mispronounce a name, I'll say up front right now that I apologize. Miss Stacy Owens, followed by Mr. and Mrs. Gribble. Are y'all going to speak at the same time? Okay, yes, ma'am. So it'll be Miss Owens, Miss Vanessa Gribble, Mr. Rick Bailey, and then Miss, and I apologize, Miss Shabilia. Okay, I hope I'm sorry if I mispronounced it too bad. So, Mr. Turner, those will be our first 4 speakers.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Transparency, a word often used in defense of one's actions. 600 letters sent to families to be affected by the redistricting. I know of one 6-year-old who has received a letter, and not one of my students' families have received a letter, much less translated into their home language. This ad hoc committee doesn't seem so transparent when representatives from Steeplechase and Sutherland were intentionally left off the committee. To date, no one from the district has contacted either neighborhood to be part of the redistricting committee. It makes me wonder. I do not think the members of the committee, to include the 4 elementary principals, high-fived each other when they saw the scenarios created or the number of students they would be losing, or the specific neighborhoods or families they were losing. However, I also do not believe that any member of the committee, to include elected school board members, stopped and said, wait a second, these scenarios are not good. We can do better. Because as a dedicated veteran educator, I would have said absolutely not when I saw the scenarios presented. If you're going to honestly say that our district has a standard of equity for all and we always put children first, there is no way you could ever agree to either of these scenarios. Unless you're only concerned with balancing the enrollment. These scenarios merely take a group of students from an underperforming school and drop them into a new building with no thought, intention, or purpose regarding their future academic success. New walls, new paint, new technology, they do nothing for their performance. Research shows that to improve performance, first and foremost, the student population needs to be 50% or less at the poverty level. The scenarios presented allow for 60% or 74% free reduced lunch respectively. Due to the fact that the district is forced to redistrict at this time, allows you to create a diverse student population that I'm speaking on behalf of my neighbors. A diverse population at either 4 or 5 elementary schools to include Man, New Haven, Erpenbeck, Collins, and Steeplechase. As I stated 2 weeks ago, the district needs to stop catering to the wealthy and share the wealth. Man and Triple Crown are not off limits. You need to redistrict in such a way as to share the ethnic and socioeconomic diversity with all elementary schools at the south end of the county. No one ever wants to take on the tough jobs, but that's exactly what jobs in education are. Your jobs are supposed to be tough, and sometimes you have to do things you don't like, but you can't turn a blind eye or ignore it because you're afraid of what the community reaction might be. I know I'm fighting for these kids that are being redistricted, just like I do every day in my classroom. So please don't use the word transparency if what you really are is opaque. And please don't say equity for all if you don't have any interest in redistricting in an equal and fair way to help all of the students who have great hardships. And if you'll cater to the community over the COVID virus, how about if you cater to the kids regarding their academic potential and really put them first? Thank you.
I'm a resident of the Steeplechase community, and I was present at your forum on the plans for districting my area. I have a daughter that will be in the first grade when the new school opens. My family and I specifically moved to this area because of the school system, and that was prior to knowing that Steeplechase Elementary School was being established. I want to share my concerns as well as my optimisms on the plans being submitted in hopes that there would be some reconsideration and fair alternative that could be submitted. As many of my neighbors have pointed out, I do not believe that there could be a denial that the socioeconomic vector is the driving force behind the only two options being presented. I completely understand overcrowding. I understand there are communities that are struggling, and I understand that diversity is important for developing children. I understand my neighbors understand, but I do not believe that this was reflected in the red line map shown to us. When I look at the map, I see a new school shouldering the burden for poor planning. If what we're looking at is best for the students, and there is no question that Collins is a major concern, I don't understand how the other schools that border Collins and are of great quality are not being considered. I say I do not understand, but I think we both know that what I say, and I say that with a tinge of sarcasm. When I look at the numbers for Collins, compared to the surrounding schools, I am shocked. What I see happening is that there was a focus put on the more affluent schools, and Collins was forgotten, ignored, poorly planned, or managed to the point that something had to be done. Instead of harming the integrity of the schools that are already doing well, an overflow is made in Steeplechase. Therefore, instead of fixing a problem, it was just expanded. This has to be the case, or you would not be busing kids 2 times the distance, passing established quality schools along the way. I completely understand why this decision was made by the committee, that it was not done out of the equality or being educationally best for all students. And I'm speaking on my own. I'm excited to have a new school in my community. I look forward to being a part of making it successful, and I welcome students of all backgrounds to it. But the focus should not be to place all students of a lower socioeconomic status in 1 or 2 schools. Specifically for my community, I am also extremely concerned about the traffic that will be created from dropping this school in our subdivision without a back exit. When I drive through my neighborhood, I routinely see families and children outside. Increasing traffic with buses and parent drop-offs is going to unnecessarily increase hazards for our residents. We are going to congest a road that is currently under construction and already a nightmare, and had dozens of buses driving who knows how long from Florence. This is awful under normal circumstances, and it will be the board's hands when poor decisions ultimately exacerbate an emergency. I can imagine that your position on this will be that the roads are not under the school board purview, that this would be a county issue. I would ask you to consider the fact that the safety of the children in your schools are very much under your purview, and any issue that creates a safety risk, even if it is not directly controlled by you or your board, is not only your responsibility, but your obligation to find a remedy. There is good news with this school. I believe that the idea of it is great. Elementary schools in Boone County, well, some elementary schools in Boone County are overcrowded, and relief from this would be welcomed. The idea is great, but not even remotely is the implementation. I am one that believes that public education is the best investment that we can make in our community. I am unsure if I am in the majority in thinking this, especially after what I have witnessed with those making the decisions for our community and our children. Ultimately, I know that there are other more fluent voices being listened to a little closer, which is to be expected. However, I believe that it is also very short-sighted to completely alienate a constituency just to cater to those voices, while negatively affecting a large group of students in the process. I am almost for certain that your decision has been made, and I doubt that there was any more options available than the two, or a third one would have been presented, as Mr. Ford's slide suggests. I do hope that you take the concerns of the community that you are directly and immensely impacting seriously, and understand that this is not just solving an overcrowding issue. In closing, I do want to thank you for your time to bear mine and my neighbors' concerns. I would like to believe that you have received more communications than you are able to go through, both positive and critical, because that would mean that the people that your decisions are affecting are paying attention and care enough to make sure that their voice is heard. I know that even though I do not agree with what is being presented, you have a job to do, and your time is valuable. I also believe for the most part that everyone involved in this process does have the children's best interest in mind. I want to believe that these concerns, which are significant, were already considered by the committee. But I can only go by what has been presented, and I'm sorry to say that the presentation did not put my mind at ease.
While he's making his way up, I do want to make one announcement. We do have some hard copies of the presentation that Mr. Ford presented. We're going to be delivering to some of our guests that are waiting in the overflow in the gymnasium.
Good evening. I hope you can all hear me. I don't always speak loud enough for everyone to hear, so sorry if it's hard to hear me. My name is Rick Bailey, and I'm going to focus on two things: the students who will be transferring from Collins Elementary and our new school, Steeplechase Elementary. I do not believe that either of the two scenarios proposed confronts the main challenge facing these students. The area needing the most attention is proficiency in math and reading. I'd also, like everyone else in this room, would like for Steeplechase Elementary School to have a chance to succeed. The responsibility for improving the proficiency should be shared. It should not be the duty of a single school, especially a new one. There are multiple elementary schools in the Boone County School District that are performing at or above the state's proficiency average. These established schools give the students of Collins Elementary the best chance for improvement. I ask that the committee please reconsider the scenarios being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, if I may, one more, Mr. Bing. It'll be Mr. Bell, Ms. Herndon, Ms. Egbers, and Mr. Cook, in that order, please. Okay.
If all means all, and if children are first, and if there is equity for everyone, I think a few things need to be addressed and reconsidered. As a foster and adoptive home of 13 years, a parent for 32 years, we've parented many children. I would like to share a story of one sibling group in particular that we fostered 4 years ago. Twin boys age 11, sister age 12. After a full quarter of the school year where these children went to court every 2 weeks, begging and crying to be sent home, they finally got to go home. It's besides the point that I need to make that it wasn't a good situation for them to return to. What is important is that on the day the judge ruled to return them to their biological father, I received their first quarter 6th grade report cards. I immediately called the principal of the school. I explained the situation. I requested intervention programs to help them bring their grades up. I also requested the school counselor to begin meeting with them weekly. The principal looked up their grades on her computer and she said, well, actually their grades aren't all that bad. We really don't expect better from those kids from homes like that. Seriously? Those kids? These kids had all D's and F's on their report cards. Those kids. This was a school with a 59% free or reduced lunch. Why am I sharing this story? Because in 32 years of parenting kids attending schools in 3 different states, 6 different counties, as well as time spent working as a paraprofessional in special needs classroom, I've parented children who are gifted and talented, typically developing, children with learning disabilities, children on individual education plans, children with behavioral intervention plans. I've worked with kids from wealthy homes, kids from homes that had families struggling, and financially and psychologically. I have never, in all that time, seen a school that was equipped to handle all of those needs. Yes, I'm representing 2 other families in this room. Yes, gifted and talented children also have needs. All kids in foster care have special needs. All kids with disabilities have special needs. Bottom line, all kids have needs. This board is currently being handed an opportunity to do it right. This is about more than shuffling numbers around just to make it work. Those kids deserve the same opportunity as the other kids. I don't think I need to define who the other kids are. I think it's important to also point out that some of the other kids are children of grown-up those kids. Those of us, and yes, I include myself in that us, who pushed past it and became successful, want better for our children. Isn't that what parenting is about? Isn't that what all parents want? We chose the home that we did after extensive research to ensure that our children have better opportunities than we had. I don't believe anyone in this room desires more than to see Steeplechase Elementary to be a success for all the children that will be attending there. The better the socioeconomic mix, the greater the diversity in these schools, the greater opportunity is presented to successfully break the cycle for more of those kids, so that more of them will grow up to be the very best they can be. This is good not only for them, but also for the future prosperity of this entire community. Kids from homes like that are at greater risk to continue down that same path. For some of them, school might be the only place they see that they can do better, that they deserve better, that they are better. No one in this room can look at those scenarios as they're presented and truthfully say that that is what is best for interest for any of the elementary children in Boone County. If you can look at that and say you're content with this as a final decision, then I think you need to look at it again. Starting out at full or nearly full capacity is a recipe for failure. This needs to be less, much less about what might upset some people, and more, much more about what will set this school up and its students up for success and not certain failure. Also, when you search for the principal that you will place in Steeplechase Elementary, please look for someone who understands the needs of all children and is proactive in meeting the diverse needs of all socioeconomic and academic abilities. This is your chance to do what's right for all children of Boone County. These children are the future of Boone County. This is your chance that prove all means all, children first, and equity for everyone. You all get to decide how you're going to set them up for success or failure.
My name's Adam Bell. I did want to first thank take the time to thank the board for all they have, are still doing, to keep our kids safe during these uneasy times. Those efforts have not gone unnoticed. This extreme load of responsibility must weigh heavy on every one of you. Keeping our kids safe is top priority, and I greatly appreciate everything you've done. I've had the great privilege to grow up in Union and receive an excellent education at New Haven, Gray, and Ryle. This education and interaction with the amazing staff have helped shape me to be the man, husband, and father I am today. The vast opportunities that came to me along the way have allowed me to become a successful mechanical engineer and provide above and beyond what my family requires. I attended the first public forum in order to pose my question, as well as ensure I am fully aware of the plans for the new elementary school. After taking some time to digest all the information and talk with other affected families, I've come to realize the great need to revise these proposed plans. This is no longer about the impact on my family alone. This is about sharing the wealth of all the children in Boone County School District. This is about equity for all means all, and putting children first, or always putting children first. This is about how diversity in all its forms at all schools is good for all students. Diversity teaches students how to live and work in a society where every individual is unique. The ability to connect with peers and neighbors with diverse backgrounds and abilities is invaluable. It helps children build empathy and encourages children to think differently. The current scenarios do not foster diversity within the affected and surrounding schools in this redistricting. Furthermore, opening this new school at or near capacity does not reflect equity or putting children first. Alleviating capacity at other schools just to start this school at capacity or near will not allow for growth. Adding onto this new school later to then alleviate its own capacity issues is retroactive thinking. Mr. Turner, every morning you said to us, make it a great day or not, choice is yours. Now is the opportunity to choose to make all schools great. Listen to your conscience and do what is best for these children. It will most definitely make this project a difficult one, but when you look back at what you've accomplished for these children, you'll be proud and free of regret. Thank you.
Hello, I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna talk on behalf of some neighbors, so.
Thank you, let me know. Thank you, sir.
I'm Rachel Herndon. I just wanted to start talking first about the communication. I know I brought up the last forum that I was not informed and a lot of our neighbors were not informed. Are you standing up here and making statements of I met legal guidelines and I did my best is not sufficient communication for me as a parent? My child is gonna be in kindergarten next year at Steeplechase Elementary School, and I would hope that I would not hear I met legal guidelines and I did my best when it comes to the communication of my child. Having said that 2 weeks ago, you guys had plenty of time to then go out and inform the community of another public forum, and you chose not to. So I find that extremely hard with how you did your best. If you did your best, you wouldn't have to stand up here and state that yourself. I'd like to focus on a couple of vectors. It's clear that you guys are clearly focused on the capacity issues that are happening at Collins. By taking the students out of Collins and placing them into Steeplechase, you're just now recreating the same issue at Steeplechase at capacity by nearly opening the school at capacity, 520 plus students. Mr. Turner, you come from this area being a principal that used to work at Ryle. You know that this area is not finished growing and that we will soon reach capacity in the school, which will again create another problem, not just at Collins, but again now at Steeplechase and likely New Haven. So I don't see how we are resolving that issue by recreating these plans. When it comes to transportation, we can see on the maps that have been handed out, multiple schools that are closer to the Collins Elementary School where these children can continue to grow into and be redistricted to. You are literally busing children from Florence to Union to Walton, which is 7 miles. I would invite you to come join me on Ridgewood Road at 7:30 in the morning to see the traffic and the transportation issue that you'll be putting these children in. They have just begun the construction on this exit. We just finished the construction on Mount Zion. It took over a numerous amount of years for that to be finished. So we have multiple years of construction coming with Ridgewood Road. Not to mention the amount of traffic that will be coming in and out of this neighborhood. I would hate to see an emergency vehicle be needed at the school, whether it be police, an ambulance, or a firefighter, and have to wait for emergency services, I would hope that you would think of your wife, your daughter, any of your family members, if they were in that situation, how that would feel. There's Florence Elementary School, which is 1.5 miles from Collins. Ackerman, 3 miles from Collins. Yaley, 4 miles from Collins. There's a handful more, but I'm just going to choose the 3 closest ones. The next factor I want to communicate is around the socioeconomics. It's clear that that's a second priority for you, but you have solved no issues within the socioeconomics. You've actually had the opposite effect to improve diversity. You've created an issue. You have 2 schools that are now extremely high in percentage of low-income families. That does not improve socioeconomics. Socioeconomics, the goal to improve that would be making it an evenly distributed amount within the school. You cannot have a school with almost 0% and then a school with 75%, a school with 90-something%. How does that drive diversity? That is not driving any diversity in any of these schools. There should be an even distribution across the entire Boone County area. Mr. Turner, as one of your first graduating students in your principal career, I remember that, I'm sure you remember that our class had a great deal of passion and a great deal of school spirit. As you can see, we haven't lost that passion or the spirit for our school. I hope you appreciate that. I'm gonna still have that same passion and school spirit for my children. Very similar to what Adam said, your statements that you said every single morning that I came to school had a lasting impression on me. It still does. So you can make this a great school or not, that proof is going to be yours.
Hello, my name is Regina Eggers. I would like to thank the school board, Mr. Turner, for allowing me to speak tonight. I watched the last forum on YouTube. What a great opportunity that is for the community. After that school board meeting, I emailed every single school board member my concerns following that meeting. I got 2 replies, only 2. I get overcrowding in schools. I taught in the system for over 30 years. No, I don't have students in this school district anymore, my own children, but I have grandchildren that are ready to move up into the school district. I chose to live in Boone County schools because I know it was a great school system. I think my biggest concern is that no representative on that committee lived in Steeplechase or in Sutherland. That to me is a big red flag. You said that parents were notified, but yet you failed to notify young families who don't have kids in the school district. These families are going to be having kids at Steeplechase Elementary for 6 years, and then younger kids, maybe 8, 9, 10 years. They have the biggest interest in the school. They're not going to be the ones to check on a school board website and school board Facebook to find out the latest information. What you should have done is contact these homeowners associations to let their residents know of these meetings. What neither one of these scenarios seems to address is the vast amount of road in southern Boone County. You know they're not done. All you have to do is take a quick drive down Ridgewood Road, down Hicks Pike, and you can see more homes are being added all the time. My big thing that kept ringing in my ear after the last school board meeting, and it was one of your vectors, was transportation. And you're busing students, and that brings back memories of busing in the 1970s when they were trying to equal out race within the schools. What you're trying to do, and clearly by these numbers, your vectors aren't working, is to equal out socioeconomics. And my last and final point, you need an emergency exit at the end of that subdivision.
Before Mr. Cook speaks, following Mr. Cook will be Ms. DeGron. And then, is that Ms. Marin? Is that correctly? Cindy? Heron. That's Mr. Raleigh?
Yes.
It's my understanding, sir, we have three people down in the overflow.
Yes.
They will follow Ms. Herron. Would you kindly go get them? Bring them this way, sir. Thank you, Mr. Raleigh. Mr. Cook, thank you for your patience, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My name is Scott Cook. I'm also speaking on behalf of a neighbor of mine, so I would ask for an extra minute or two. I'm going to start reading a statement of his and then get in some of my own thoughts as well. So first off, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the families in Boone County, and more specifically, the members of the Jockey Club in Triple Crown. The new school represents so much for the community. It means that households want to raise families in our county, which means we're doing something right. We know the school board then has the challenging task of getting this new school ready for its students. The first and most difficult is figuring out who those students will be, and we know that the school board has invested a lot of time and effort into those scenarios. One of the hard parts for the families has been that we have not had an opportunity until this month, which, as we saw in your timeline, is very far down in the overall planning, to see and hear about what these scenarios are and hear why some are plausible and why some weren't for those that were discarded. While in our heads we believe that there might be other ways to redistrict the larger school system, we also realize that there are numerous challenges in doing so. However, with all the factors in play, it really boils down to two things for me. With scenario 2, Collins would still be over capacity. One of your top 3 vectors for redistricting was to eliminate this overcrowding and allow for growth. If one of these schools is still over capacity, that criteria is not met. Another top 3 vector of yours was maintaining existing neighborhoods by using established community boundaries. Our community is Triple Crown. We don't go by small subsection names of it. Our families, our kids, we all grow up together, and we look for the opportunities to interact with our communities. By breaking off this one small subsection, you are removing us from the rest of our community, which again is one of the vectors you said you were trying to maintain. Whether you enter Triple Crown from Richwood Road or from Hicks Pike, you have to drive through or past numerous other neighborhoods to get to Jockey Club. Yet neither scenario, specifically scenario 2, called those out. So I would ask the school board to address, not today, but just to, when you take away your talking points, your action items, address why those other neighborhoods that you must pass to get to Jockey Club were not included. Thank you.
Good evening, can you hear me? Sorry, just to make sure we're not. My name is Katrina DeGrande, and my husband, daughter, and I are residents of the Triple Crown community. First of all, we would like to thank the Boone County Board of Education and the Demographics and Growth Committee for all of the time and effort that has gone into the redistricting planning. We recognize that determining how to best fill Steeplechase Elementary while also reducing the student populations of both Collins and New Haven to under capacity is not an easy task. We believe there could be alternate scenarios that would accomplish the goal of reducing the size of the student bodies of both Collins and New Haven without segregating the Jockey Club streets from the rest of the Triple Crown community. For this reason, my husband Sean and I sat down last Friday and we put our thoughts down on the paper regarding each scenario. On Saturday morning, we published our thoughts in the form of a petition to the Boone County Board of Education. With the help of our neighbors, we informed the other 75 or so houses within Jockey Club about the petition. By Monday, we required over 200 signatures from those in agreement that neither scenario is educationally best for all of the students of Boone County. And to just piggyback off of what others have been saying, I don't know that socioeconomic makeup should be the biggest thing that you're looking at. I think we should take that more into consideration because either of the scenarios just don't seem to be best, educationally best for all of the students. Also, Steeplechase and Sutherland published a petition on Monday using almost identical language to ours. Again, we would like to encourage the committee to bring forth alternate scenarios that would better benefit all of the students involved. However, we understand that time is of the essence, with Steeplechase Elementary opening next year. As presented earlier, it looks like the plan is for the board to vote for it and move forward with the final scenario in December, just 2 months from now. If it's too late to bring alternate scenarios to the table, the Triple Crown Jockey Club community would like to encourage the board to vote for scenario 1. Scenario 1 would not segregate Triple Crown Jockey Club from the rest of the community. Our daughter goes to daycare and has quite a few friends at daycare that live throughout the neighborhood. We hate to think that while we can swim at the community pool with our friends, we can play at the playground and speak on behalf of a few other families. But I'm almost done. She'll never be able to be classmates or ride the bus with her. There are right around 30 elementary age kids in the few Triple Crown Jockey Club streets within our community that would in effect be isolated or divided from the rest of Triple Crown. And it seems unjust to do that to those kids. Splitting up the community also disrupts childcare resources that families have established within our neighborhood. Triple Crown is already divided between 2 elementary schools. And now it sounds like potentially adding a third in the mix is a possibility. And it's neither necessary nor preferred by our residents. Additionally, of the 2 scenarios, it seems that scenario 1 best accomplishes the task at hand, bringing both the fallen population and the abusive population to manageable numbers, which would be educationally best for all of the students involved in redistricting. Scenario 1 brings all 3 schools under capacity. On the flip side, scenario 2 does not solve the capacity issues, as Collins would still be over capacity. I brought printed copies of our petition with me for your perusal. I brought one for each member of the Board of Education, one for Mr. Turner. Thank you for your time and consideration, and we look forward to learning of your decision in December.
Just a second. Mr. Rowland, thank you for going and getting those individuals from the overflow. After Ms. Herron, it'll be Mr. Owens, Ms. Shear, if I'm saying it correctly, and then Ms. Crane. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Rowland. Ms. Herron, thank you.
My name is, am I close enough? Okay, my name is Cindy Herron, and I'm also a Steeplechase resident. I share many of the same concerns as my Steeplechase neighbors, including genuine safety issues tied to the traffic patterns throughout our neighborhood and opening the school at capacity. However, I must state plainly and directly, though, that I am not represented by any statements made during the first hearing that referenced those children. Like many others, my question to the board is, why is this redistricting limited to 2 schools, resulting in a new school opening at or near capacity? We know our county is growing, we see it. We know Amazon is bringing jobs. We know that our schools will continue to grow and other schools will soon be in the same situation. Can we not prepare with the bigger picture in mind? Can we take this opportunity to rebalance all of our schools so that no matter where people choose to live within our district, all of our schools are ready to welcome them? One bigger adjustment could be less painful than several smaller adjustments that just keep going into the foreseeable future. I continue to come back to a phrase that I heard in my initial SBDM training. Are we operating as a system of separate schools, or are we operating as a school system? Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dr. John Owens. I'm a resident of Steeplechase. I've been an educator for nearly 30 years. And really, I just wanted to tell you a story. I had the great privilege of serving on a site-based decision-making committee in Kenton County for a couple of years at an elementary school. But I also had the opportunity to be a basketball coach for 4th and 5th graders 2 years in a row. What was supposed to happen in these athletic competitions and the organization of these teams where the kids were supposed to be equitably distributed in terms of talent across the different age groups and the teams. I got my team in the 5th grade year. We were okay. But then something strange happened. My guess is some parents got together and one team wanted to win. They wanted to be able to score more points than everybody else on the weekend. So they took players from my team and stacked the team in terms of quality, athletic ability. I got back to a young boy named Marty. Marty didn't have a great deal of athletic ability. But Marty was wonderful, great attitude, didn't come from a wealthy home. But I enjoyed coaching him. And the fact is that I'm a teacher at heart. And what I appreciated was being able to see Marty grow. He was never going to reach the heights of some of the kids on that other team. And we lost a lot. The troubling thing was, though, I wanted so much for them to win. I wanted them to have that feeling that they had more points on the scoreboard than the other team. I don't know if we ever did that year. As an educator, I felt fine because I thought, quite frankly, I was a better teacher than the other coaches. I had brought that student up, showed great growth, but we didn't get on the scoreboard. When I see this distribution, this redistricting, it seems like a couple schools that want to stack their teams to score more points. And as a board, I hope that you would think about a student like Marty and hope that you can give him a chance to succeed and win. Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I truly respect the work that you and your teams have put into the redistricting of the Boone County elementary schools. I feel your plans still have many shortfalls that need to be addressed. As a resident of Triple Crown's Jockey Club neighborhood, I do not understand scenario 2 and why 4 streets in Jockey Club, and that is all that there is, with less than 30 children, and we went door to door to count them, are being separated from their community. Currently, the Triple Crown community is split into 2 elementary schools, and to split into 3, pulling only 30 children out of the neighborhood, does not create the sense of community that you are working to establish. I have reviewed your numbers, looked at them, Google searched everything from mileage of schools and where they are, and I don't understand a decision with scenario number 2, where Collins would still be over capacity. One of your top 3 vectors for redistricting was to eliminate overcrowding and to allow for growth, which we all know is coming. If one of the schools is still over the capacity, it doesn't meet your criteria. Another one of your top 3 vectors for redistricting was, and I'll quote, maintaining existing neighborhoods by using established community boundaries. Our community is 4 streets plucked out of many, not even at the lower quadrant of the lowest quadrant of the subdivision, and asked to go to another school. These children will not go to school with other children around the neighborhood or other families that they see at the park and play with. You would fracture off 4 streets out of the community to go to a 3rd school. I am further puzzled as to how Mann Elementary is excluded from redistricting. Mann is 3.7 miles from Jockey Club, 4.8 miles from Steeplechase, and Collins is 6.6 miles from Steeplechase, but yet much closer to many other schools in Boone County. You need to help us understand why you did not include all schools that impact the Triple Crown neighborhood. With scenario number 1, the 30 children of Jockey Club can easily remain at their present school. The change to 3 schools in this neighborhood creates many child care challenges for families in this neighborhood. Again, I know you've had many considerations, and this is a daunting task. My ask is that you please not consider separating one neighborhood into 3 elementary schools. I know of no other community that you do this in. Thank you.
training, and that's last that you have signed up that are in the overflow. After Ms. Crane will be Ms. Weaver.
And I am talking for some people in the other room too.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for letting me know.
Thank you. Okay, the Kentucky education vision is each and every student empowered and equipped to pursue a successful future. You can help achieve this by spreading the overcrowdedness and diversifying with all of the elementary schools so all children have an equal level socially, economically, and educationally from the school district. Fair distribution and capacity is needed for the whole district. 11 of your 14 schools are under capacity. 6 out of the 14 schools are under capacity by 115 to 185 students. 2 of the 14 are under capacity by 310 and 460 students. And then I'm curious on why Steeplechase and Sutherland didn't have any representation on the committee, but Triple Crown did, and some others on the committee that would not be impacted at all. I would say it's because they were protecting their own schools. I believe you said that the board has the final approval, so I hope they are watching and listening to us all. Because I believe some of your phrases are equity for all means all, and we always put children first. For equity for all, explain to us how this is equity for all of Boone County Elementary Schools. And then with the always put children first, you should put now in redistrict, you should do it now and redistrict all of Boone County Elementary Schools to even out the inequity of it all. Geographically, it does not make sense. I think that's all I have. But please consider your own phrases in this redistribution of all of schools from Boone County, but I believe this is your chance to make it all right for everyone. Thank you.
And Mr. Turner, Ms. Weaver is the last one.
As the 2003 Ryle High School graduate, I stand before you tonight in direct response to the comments and questions I have for both the Redistricting Committee and the audience of citizens that have already spoken. I am the president of the PTO, both a parent member of the Site-Based Decision-Making Board and the FRC Advisory Council at Collins Elementary. My children will be directly impacted by the redistricting of students to attend Steeplechase Elementary in both proposed scenarios. My children will be uprooted from the student body that they have become wholesomely a part of to attend school with a school body that has already made it divinely transparent that they will not be thought of as anything more than a free lunch underachiever. Over the past 5 years, I've witnessed the extraordinary content of what pours from that school. Many parents in schools in this district will never have the opportunity to see such growth. Unbiased opinion, lack of judgment upon others, or the endless perseverance or opportunity that does lie within Collins. Unfortunately, due to many families that are economically disadvantaged and English language learning, our students do not always have the paved pathway that we as parents hope for. It does not make these students castaways and makes them our primary concern. These students are still our future, regardless of what their lunch account status may be. I also happen to be amongst the number of students that fell upon the redistricting lines when Gray Middle School opened in 1994. I was a middle-class student that came from a family that had one parent at work and a stay-at-home mom. We were never low income, but my family lived paycheck to paycheck. I went to Offerman Elementary, Jones Middle, and then I was uprooted to Ryle. I grew up with children that were shuffled between various schools. The majority of my middle school went to Boone County, and I went to Ryle, where the majority of those students came from Gray. As a mother of 4 children and a small business owner, this is still the most difficult transition that I've ever experienced. It became very relevant for me to understand that sink or swim really meant just that. I chose to swim. I made new friends, I graduated, I also had many visits in Mr. Turner and Mr. Ford's office. They helped me to understand where my behavior could be better self-evaluated. The belief seems to be that Steeplechase families wanted Steeplechase Elementary to be their own private charter school. Let's face the reality here, folks. This is still a public school. The capacity that has been a concern for many in reference to the new built-in developments that could occur are not pertinent to redistricting at this time. As we have been told in previous committee meetings, there is not a current revision to the non-existent sewer system to permit any additional development in the near future. The homeowners of Steeplechase homes are worried about the home value decreasing, and home values will still increase. You'll still have a school within walking distance of your front door. Steeplechase Elementary will be just like Collins when they open their doors, whether Collins or New Haven students are redistricted or not. They're still going to open with a Title I school. My questions for this committee are, how are we as a community going to make this redistricting plan a better solid transition for the hundreds of students that are going to be moved? What are we going to do about the students that are redistricted, and what can we do to ensure that they will be safe, not mistreated, or spoken to viciously by others that have already proven or that are already spreading negative connotations about these Collins students? Will our students have a positive learning environment? Or is there a solution that can be found by adding more classrooms to the main structure that already exists at Collins? The district has already added structure space to other schools in our area. If we were to add to the current structure and plan for the current students to remain in the district for Collins, they would have better overall odds for success. Although that may be another conversation, it needs to be known that these students that would be coming from Collins are far more than a head count. They have names, feelings, circumstances, value. They have potential. And we as a community are responsible to ensure that we are aggressively mindful of the institution of their success. These kids are wanted by Steeplechase. So can we see other redistricting options, or can we pugnaciously pursue a better fundamental foundation of their needs by adding more to what already exists?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time and the opinions and viewpoints that everyone has spoken tonight. Our committee will take this information and go back to work, and they will be evaluating and reevaluating the proposals, and they will make a final recommendation to the school board. That date will be published, whether that's the December date or whether that may be the January date. That's unknown at this point in time, but we will be working on a timeline. So again, I do appreciate each of you coming out this evening, expressing your thoughts and your viewpoints, and you take value in that. And obviously, from many of the comments, we know that this is an extremely difficult decision, an extremely complex decision, and it affects a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So again, we thank you for your opinions, your viewpoints, and expressing those so that we can work to make the best decision possible. Thank you. This is adjourned to our meeting.